Well, hello. Welcome back to another edition of the MilVet Podcast. I'm your host, Beau Higgins, and I'm honored here today to be joined by my guest, Alex Lisot. For those that don't know about the MilVet was formed to basically help veterans find jobs, primarily in the private equity and venture capital space. But we also do a lot of different things to help out veterans and also bring on interesting guests such as Alex to talk about what they're doing in the veteran space. So, with my pleasure, Alex, to have you on the show. And Alex, would love to hear a little bit about you.
I appreciate it, Beau, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for veterans out there, just so you know. Yeah, I guess I can give you a little bit of background to what led me here today. Grew up in Texas. When I was a kid, I watched the movie Top Gun, like all the other kind of nerds out there, and decided I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So I went for it, ended up deciding I wanted to go into the Air Force. I applied to UT Austin, CU Boulder, in the Air Force Academy. And I got into all three. But they didn't give me the scholarship that I needed to go to Boulder. And my parents said they loved me, but they didn't love me enough to pay for me to go to Boulder. So I had a full ride to UT, and I had to make the decision, do I want to go join fraternities and party and hang out with my friends down at UT Austin, or do I want to go get my butt kicked for 4 years? And somehow made the decision to end up at the Air Force Academy. So that's what led me there.
Yeah. As a guy that went to University of Virginia, I don't know I could have made that. I would have made a different choice, I think, personally, but I'm happy that there are patriots like yourself that are happy to go to the Air Force Academy. And the Air Force Academy is beautiful, having been out there. I will say,
gorgeous.
It is a gorgeous spot.
It's absolutely gorgeous. The saying that everybody says is, it's a great place to be from, not a great place to be at.
Fair enough.
So,
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 years there are a kick in the pants, but once you're done with it, it is pretty cool to have had that experience, and it's a good network, and it sets you up for a lot.
No doubt. Now, did you have a military influence with your family, or why the Air Force Academy? What was is it truly just Top Gun? Was it, or is there other things out there?
Yeah. I mean, that was really it. My great grandpa was a pilot in the Army Air Corps way back in the day. So there is some military history in my family. My grandpa as well, way back in the day, was a paratrooper. But nothing like day-to-day life growing up. Neither of my parents were in the military. We weren't around it at all. Nobody talked about it at all. It was just something that I wanted to be a pilot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what did your parents think about you going to the Air Force Academy? Moms are always a little sometimes skeptical. I've seen from like, my boy's going to the military, you know?
Oh yeah. She was definitely freaking out a little bit. Texas does a really good job though of celebrating military people. Like my whole school had an assembly. They brought me up in front of everybody, and like everybody was cheering, and made like a huge deal out of it. So it kind of made it easier for the family to get excited about sending me off. And I was really excited too, and thought it was pretty cool until, fast forward 3 or 4 months later, I'm sitting there with a bald head getting screamed at by 20 people all at the same time doing push-ups. Thought, ooh, man.
All your buddies are at UT doing a different experience, right? Yeah.
yeah. Everybody's down there having a great time. But no, it was great. It was wonderful. One of the biggest experiences we can get into later on if you want, but something that the Academy did for me that completely changed the trajectory of my life is I minored in Spanish while there, and they hooked me up with 2 programs that were absolutely incredible. They sent me to Argentina for a whole summer, or basically like a month over summer, to learn Spanish. And then they sent me on a semester abroad to a civilian school in Mexico.
Wow.
And what it did was teach me Spanish. So I wouldn't say I'm 100% fluent in Spanish, but I'm pretty strong. And B, it gave me the opportunity to live abroad, which was a really cool experience, because growing up in Texas, it's a very conservative area, like very kind of not singular mindset, but everybody kind of thinks a similar way. And so it was great to like all of a sudden be in a completely different environment and be around people that thought in a completely different way than I'd ever thought before. And it was just a great experience, and kind of set up the rest of what I did.
Yeah, I think it's a great point you bring up. I think people don't appreciate, but some of the doors the Academy's open for you, and all the opportunity to do those other things during your 4 years. I mean, again, there's a lot of time. Obviously, that is a little challenging, but also some amazing opportunities. No doubt about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That the first summer of the Academy, we what I do, I went to jump school, so I got 5 jumps out of an airplane. I did some kind of like combat training stuff, lived out in the woods, some survival training type thing. So, at the end of the day, nobody remembers all the great parties they went to back in the day. These are some pretty cool experiences that even now I look back on.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about just your Air Force experience. Obviously, your dream came true, right? You got to be a pilot. Any highlights of your time in the service?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I ended up flying F-15Cs, which they've retired them from the active duty. They brought them all back now to just the Air National Guard. So they're not overseas at all. But so that kind of ties into one of the reasons why I wanted this plane so bad was because at the time they only had two bases and they were both Okonas. So I could either go to Okinawa, Japan, or I could go to RAF Lakenheath in the UK. So I ended up in the UK, and that's where I spent the majority of my active duty career, and separated from the service out of there. And I met my wife. So my wife is British. And so now I'm kind of dialed in, locked into the UK for the rest of my life because my wife's from there.
I love it. One quick name game question for you. Did you ever serve with John Quintus, perchance?
Doesn't ring a
The
bell.
FFP
No.
guy. He was the CEO at Lakenheath. He was with me at Amazon. Never know. Small military. I had to put that one out.
You never know.
That's
You
awesome.
never know.
Well, hey, so you joined the Air Force. You got a great airframe. You found a wife. I mean, this is a pretty good program. The Air Force is setting you up for success here. But obviously,
That's what I mean.
yeah, all good things must come to an end, or your time. I'll ask you this question. It's always interesting to me, when and why people transition out. I tell, for me, I did 25 years, but I literally had my change of command in the morning and I retired in the afternoon. Like I just knew I was ready. And I kind of feel like when you know, and it's a nebulous concept, but kind of when you know, what was your transition, thought process like, or, what kind of drove you to that?
For me, I don't know if I'm a standard situation. I almost pretty much from the get-go, showing up at the academy, realized I didn't want to make a career out of it. I absolutely loved my time in the military. Like there's some serious highs and some serious lows, and it's a pain in the ass a lot of times as well. But it is an amazing, amazing experience while you're in it. But even then, I knew for me, it was just going to be one chapter of my life.
Yep.
And what was pretty cool is while still active duty, I started using some of the advantages that we have being military members, namely the VA loan. So I started investing in real estate when I was about, I think like 24, 25. So that when I got to the point where I finished my commitment and I was able to make the decision, do I want to get out of the military or do I want to continue on? I was able to make that decision completely based upon what was right for me and not worried about a paycheck whatsoever. So I had the opportunity. I did some serious soul searching. I talked to everybody in my family about it. And I just realized like I was ready for the next chapter.
Yeah, again, when you know, and I think you did some great work too. I mean, unfortunately, so many veterans that transition wait to the last minute, like, oh man, I should have been doing things, as soon as you start, at some point you're going to transition, and I beat that in people's heads these days because people ignore that transition piece to the last minute. They're like, oh, what do I do when I'm getting out in 2 weeks and I haven't been prepared? But it sounds like you had a little better forethought on that one. And had a little bit of a plan. But what was the plan? Was the plan to get into real estate then, or what was the kind of how'd that initial transition work for you?
Yep. So probably non-standard as well. I got out. I booked a one-way plane ticket to Thailand. I packed a backpack and I left. That was my plan.
I like that plan. That sounds pretty fun.
That was a simplified version of the plan. I from the get-go, before I even started the separation process, I was looking at what I wanted to do next. I had the income coming in from real estate already, so I wasn't freaking out about a paycheck. The plan was to buy a business. So I got all the way to the 1 yard line of purchasing a travel company that was based out of Mexico. And basically the day or two before I was going to close on it, COVID hit. So thank God I didn't buy this business because it would have completely destroyed me financially if I had. But I ended up starting an e-commerce company. The whole plan when I got out was I wanted to create a business that satisfied three things. One, it was completely location independent, so I could run it and operate it from anywhere in the world. Two, it was scalable and lucrative, so I could actually support my lifestyle on it. And then three, what was number three? Oh, three was that I don't have to completely trade my time for money every single day. So I could go to sleep, I could go surfing, I could go scuba diving, whatever else, and it would still be making me money. So I did some research and I ended up settling on, e-commerce. This looks like it works. And I did some research. I took a little course on it and launched a company and ended up doing really well.
So when you say e-commerce, and that can mean a lot of different things, obviously. For you, what was the focus on the e-commerce side? Or what niche did you find or figure out that was going to not only allow you to hit the three goals you had, but something that had not been done before, that was a new idea?
Yeah. So what's cool in that space is instead of instead of like, oh, I have a great idea, this is a product that I want to sell, there's so much data and information out there, you can reverse engineer it. So there's software that kind of scrapes Amazon, for example. You might be familiar with this. So you can figure out, okay, there's particular niches out there that are selling really well, and there's low quality products because people are buying these for whatever reason. There's high demand for them, and there's not enough sellers providing the products that they need. So I did a bunch of research, and I figured out at that point in time, back in, it was like 2019 or 2020, alcohol breathalyzers were selling really well, like the kind you use like before you jump in a car or something and go drive off. And all the sellers that were selling them were all these like cheap Chinese ones that were horrible, and they all had terrible reviews. And I went, oh, okay, cool. So this is easy. Awesome. And I went out there and I sourced a high quality one. I put together some good ad copy for it and launched it. And actually launched it in the UK at first because it was an easier market to get into, and built out the brand in the UK, then spread to the EU, then went over to North America. And then we spread from there and started selling on Walmart.com as well in the States. And then Mercado Libre, which is the largest one in Latin America. So I ended up selling in 17 different countries, and I built it out to we had like a team of 25 people running the show. But what was cool is I'm doing all this while backpacking around the world, so while living in different countries. So my long story short, with my wife, she ended up, we weren't married at the time, but she came with me. You know, we were boyfriend, girlfriend, traveled the world. Just been having a really good time.
That's amazing. And all this was just self-funded. Did you get any investments, or were you just like, this is all kind of bootstrapping yourself?
I was 100% bootstrap. It was cool because I had been smart while in the military. I had a pretty sizable nest egg saved up that I could use to fund any business stuff. And then I had the income coming in from my properties to kind of handle our lifestyle. And what's cool when you're earning in dollars and spending in pesos or baht in Thailand, like things go a lot further. But one thing I do want to touch on is the transition out of the military, though. I'm a pretty confident and competent guy. You know, I come from the fighter pilot world. Like, you have to be that type of person to survive there. And the transition hit me like a brick wall that I did not think it would be like that. And I had no idea how much of my identity of who I was tied to that which I did. And then as soon as you took away that which I did, so now it's like every day for the 10 years before that, I'd introduce myself as I'm Alex, the fighter pilot. And then all of a sudden the next day I'm Alex, the dude, the guy. Hey, what's up? You know, I used to do this, but nobody cares really about what you used to do. So it was a very challenging process, kind of finding mission and purpose again after that. I'd say for me, that was the harder part than actually like coming up with income over time.
No, that's such a great point. And I think it hits everyone in the military at some point, because again, I certainly, you take for granted that you have this sense of purpose in the military. You wake up every day, you put the uniform on, you don't think about the fact that you have this, you're part of a bigger team, you're doing something, but you're doing it, but it's part of everyday life. You're doing something that has a bigger purpose, a bigger calling. And then when it's gone, it's weird because you don't think it's going to be a big deal. And it's funny you say what you did, because my kids, for 25 years, my kids are like, oh, my dad's a Marine. And then my first job out of the military was working for a company that sold fiber optic cable. And they're like, my dad sells cable? He's a cable guy?
Right.
I'm like, like, this doesn't have the same ring to it, like you're the cable guy. Like, oh, yeah, like cable guy,
So. Was it a kind of similar experience for you? Did you have this kind of loss of purpose, or for you, was it you were ready and jumped?
I was ready. I mean, again, like you, I was ready to go, and I knew it was time. I just didn't know I'd have that void. I didn't know that you would be missing I call it the so what factor. Like, you have a so what factor for 25 years in the military, as I'm sure you did. And then when it's gone, you didn't appreciate, but something's missing. Like, there's a part of you that's not being fulfilled, right? So, for me, it led from being there to be at Amazon, where I was working with a military team and still working in the military space, but I needed to find that way to give back to complete the full package, right? The job piece was fine, but it was just not fulfilling. Something was missing, right? And again, I'm sure that's happened to so many people that, how do you fill that void that the military had? And you don't want to be in. I don't need to be doing it, priority number one, but it needs to be part of it or wrapped around your identity in some way, shape, or form. And finding that is a challenge for a lot of people that are hard to find and balance the two, right?
100%. It is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so how long did you do that for? So that's pretty good growth in a relatively short period of time. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. Yeah. I jumped in the space just at the right time. And then, I mean, just followed a business model to a T and made my own improvements along the way that really helped out. I did that for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And what I can say is, so my dream while in the military, it's always like the grass is greener on the other side, was to have all the freedom in the world. Because I was, as a fighter pilot, it's a very regimented lifestyle. It's very long hours. You're there showing up 4 a.m. to brief sometimes, and you're debriefing until 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and then you go home, you sleep, you wake up, you come right back to work. You're gone all the time. So I wanted this ultimate kind of freedom, and I imagined this lifestyle of, basically passive income coming in and being able to do whatever I wanted to all the time. And so I set up that lifestyle and I made it work, and I loved it. But what I found was that over time, it was kind of diminishing returns. Going out and surfing every single day for a couple of weeks is like, it's really cool. It's awesome. But just for my personality type, it was almost like retiring from a very young age. And after a while, it's like, okay, well, how many times can I go play golf?
Yeah.
Like this isn't going to work anymore for me. So that's where I've kind of transitioned to the next period of the next chapter of my life is how I see it. And I have two big things going on right now. One, I applied to London Business School. So I'm heading to get my MBA this fall.
Nice.
It's a 2-year program. It's a school. It's not as well known as, say, some of like the Harvards or the Stanfords or anything like that in the United States, but it's actually comparable and outranks some of them. But it's more of like an international focus. They advertise themselves as the most international cohort of any business school on the planet. So it's pretty cool. Like I'm going to be going through a program with people from, I don't know, like 100 different countries.
Wow.
or something like that. So pretty excited about that as just like personal growth and to see where I can take my endeavors to the next level. And then 2, I've now, just like you were saying, where you kind of got back in and started, you wanted to work with a military team again or be involved with military at Amazon. And then now what you're doing with all this, I feel like I wanted to get back into the military world as well and contribute and help out in any way that I could. So something that I wouldn't say I'm like an absolute expert on it. I know a lot. I know, a little bit about a lot of things. When it comes to military benefits. And something that I've come to realize is it's so interesting. You see so many veterans get out of the military and struggle, not only with purpose, but also financially for a lot of people, depending on their situation. And joining the military is like the ultimate life hack. Like the US government really does set you up for success for the rest of your life, no matter what you decide to do. As long as you serve honorably, you do your time and you get out, there are so many programs available to you. What the military and the government doesn't do well and the VA doesn't do well is let you know about them and then make them easily accessible for you. So I've kind of gone through this whole process over the past 5 years as well in the background where I've learned about all this stuff, how to access all your different benefits. And if people are out there struggling, as the very first thing that you should do before you go and try and specifically like, oh, I'm going to go to college to get a higher education degree or work with these think tanks to try and get hired somewhere else or whatever. Start with the advantages that we have as military people that civilians don't. And so your first thing is your benefits. So figure out what you have out there available to you that you can use and jump into that first. Start with that because it's all the low-hanging fruit, just the stuff that you've already earned and that you deserve, no more, no less. And then from there, you can get yourself into a position where you have a little breathing room financially to then make some decisions that make more sense for you.
Yeah, I say this all the time, especially for transitioning veterans, and especially even more so for the NCOs, the junior guys that are getting out. That I think this is somewhat of a generalization, but I knew a lot of my Marines. I talked to them all as they got out. The vast majority of them, they just wanted to get out and didn't want to listen to any of the transition stuff. They just wanted to be done. They wanted to be done. Mm-hmm. And what's your plan? Corporal Jones, like, I'm going back to college and getting my degree. I'm like, where are you going to college? Like, well, I'm not really sure yet. What are you going to want to study? Well, I'm not really sure yet. That was like the easy answer was go back to college and then figure it out from there. But which was not a plan. I mean, it was a way to get me to sign the paperwork for them to get out of the military, but it was really not a plan at all, And then 6 months later, when they're on mom's couch and they're like, man, this kind of, this sucks. Listen to the colonel or the gunny or the, master sergeant. And they're like, I know there was something out there that I heard about somewhere, but, and then you can literally, and I use this term all the time, you've probably heard it, you can drown in a sea of goodwill, right? There are so many benefits. There's so many programs out there. It can be overwhelming. like, where do you start? I think for any of us, it's the starting point is the hard part, because if you're coming into it and you don't really have anybody helping you out, it's like, where do you start? I think I want to do this, but man, it's probably going to be a pain dealing with the VA, or it's probably going to be a pain dealing with the Department of Labor or whatever it is, and it just scares people off. Like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna get a job you're working at the plant or whatever it is, but
Yep.
they don't take it the next step, because it is so it seems to be, and I think it really is very confusing, just overwhelming. And again, it sounds like you've kind of maybe put all or kind of trying to address that problem. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So the two main things that we put together. So first and foremost, the company's called Master the Military. You can check it out at masterthemilitary.com. We've got a bunch of information on there. The two things are, one, we wanted to put together all of the information in one place. So it's all there. Everything's there in one spot. So you don't have to go out there and search for it. Just like you said, you can drown in the information that's out there. There's so many different YouTube channels and people talking about it, and nonprofits that are offering to this and that and everything. Just having it in one place where you can access it all is incredibly helpful. And then two, I wanted to solve that kind of loss of mission, loss of purpose that people feel, and that I felt in particular getting out of the military. So I wanted to kind of create a community around it at the same time. So it's a community of people that are all coming together to learn about and maximize all their benefits and maximize the lifestyle that you can have while transitioning out of the military. So it's pretty cool. We've got three different components to it. We have the classroom. So we just put together all these kind of masterclass modules teaching you everything about how to use your GI Bill, how to use your VA loan, how do you get the disability rating that you've earned, no more, no less is what we say. And outside of the videos, then we have a community. So we've got like kind of an online messaging board. Everybody can post questions and update everybody with what's going on and the successes that they're having. And we have some pretty successful individuals in there. So what's cool is if you have any issues, you can't figure something out, instead of having to Google around and try and figure it out and get frustrated, you can just post your question there. And very likely somebody in there has had that issue and knows how to solve it. Two, and then three, we have calls. So we do weekly calls where we bring in experts who are much smarter than me and much smarter than most people in the community in their particular niche to talk about whatever it is. So I'll use disability benefits as an example. Like, we have a guy that comes in that used to work for the VA and was a VA rater. And so he teaches something about VA disability benefits for the first 20 minutes. And for the rest of the call, he sits there and just answers questions. So you can sit there and bring your exact issues that you have to these people. Hey, I don't understand how to do this, or the VA told me no for this reason. Why? And then you can get an answer directly from an expert. So it's pretty cool, and it's already helping people out in a serious way. We just launched a couple months ago, and we already have over 100 members. So we're doing big
That's
things.
awesome.
Pretty excited.
I love that, and again, much needed to have that one-stop shop. And a lot of people claim to do it, but none of it are perfect out there. And if we can ever improve, that process, which sounds like you're doing, that is huge. Now, for the classroom piece, is it all virtual, or is it cohorts? Do you pick a track? Talk to me a little more about the classroom piece of it.
Yeah. So right now the classrooms it's just all online.
Yeah.
It's just videos that you can watch. We've just put it all together in one place for you. The end goal and plan, when we have more people, we've got like a map feature built in as well. You don't have to actually use it if you don't want to, but you can set your location to your city, just kind of somewhere in your city, so people know. So for example, when we have a couple thousand people in it, you can sit there and go, great, we have 50, 100, 200 people in Dallas, Fort Worth, or whatever. And then the idea is to start getting in-person events together as well, which I think is really going to help foster this sense of community and purpose.
I love that. No,
Pretty cool.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, but it is you have to go to 10 different places, and people get so frustrated by just the bureaucracy of things. And to have someone that has been there, done it, can walk you through it is huge. What are you seeing? I guess if you know any feedback or data yet, and what do you see as like the most prevalent challenges that the veterans that you're dealing with are facing? What's like is there like a clearly number one, or is it just kind of all over the page?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly the number one stuff that people come to us with is the VA disability.
Yeah.
Just because navigating that system is so challenging.
Yeah.
And it's not like the people seem to get very frustrated and think that the VA is against them. They designed this system to kind of shut them down. I don't think that's the way it works at all. It's just it's a government entity like anything else, and it works in convoluted ways, and it's structured as this system. And the problem is nobody teaches you about it. There's no rule book out there, or there is, and it's like 150 pages and it's all the different regulations and it's crazy and all that. So it's just learning how to use the system. And so this is what's pretty cool. And I think a challenge for people going from the military to this world, and why veterans get so frustrated, is you show up in the military and it in itself is an extremely convoluted system, how to make rank and how to do this and how to do that and everything. But what's cool is you're plugged right into a network of individuals. There's people above you, there's people around you, there's people below you. You can talk to people about this. And there's somebody there that's been there and done that already. And then all of a sudden you get out of the military and you're set adrift. Just like, whew, off there, you're out on your own. I had a call with a guy yesterday who was telling me that he had gone in and tried for his disability compensation. He had really bad PTSD and all sorts of issues. He'd been over to Iraq a few times. And he was so frustrated and just beat down by it because he was just confused. He's like, I don't understand. The system is set up to help me, but I don't know how to use it. And it was the frustration of having them tell him no so many times that got him to the point where he didn't even care anymore. He didn't even want to try. So that's just what we want to solve.
Yeah,
so we're now putting together a network of individuals that have been there and done that. And you show up and they're just like, yeah, man, just do this, and this, boom. Just like it used to work in the military.
I think it's interesting you say that because, I think you're spot on that the VA is not the bad guy. They want you to have what you deserve, but it's implemented inconsistently, I think, because a VA advisor at one place may not know, even the advisors don't always know all the rules and regulations, right? And that's what I saw is like, two people could walk in to the same place and talk to different, disability advisors and come out with different. It's just inconsistent, I think, is a lot of it. And then to your point, there's no one they can then go back to and say, or ahead of time and say, what should I do to be prepare myself for it? What can I do to counter it? I mean, it's and you're right. And then people get mad and they like, screw it. They don't want it. And then but it's a massive problem. I agree with you on that front for sure.
Well, so here's another thought about this, and this one is definitely a little controversial because I've been working on this for months and months and months now, and I get some pushback on this, and I'd like to actually hear your opinion about it as well. So what we've set up, this is not a nonprofit. This is a for-profit enterprise, and I very specifically set it up that way because I want to be able to provide the best service to veterans. It seems to me that there's this interesting view from veterans out there that on one hand, they go, everything that's out there sucks. I can't access it. Nobody teaches me anything. And then on the other hand, they go, well, I want everything for free because there's nonprofits that offer this stuff to me. So I think I should be able to get it for free. So you've got services that supposedly suck on one hand, and then this idea of like, well, I don't want to spend any money on anything. So I'm very clear about this, that we are a for-profit enterprise. Now, all of the money that we earn by bringing people into the community is then pumped back into the community to be able to provide the awesome stuff that we do provide to people. So what do you think about that? Like, obviously representing a lot of different nonprofits. Yeah. Do you think nonprofits are able to fulfill the mission that they try to?
I think the for-profit model it can be a slippery slope just because people have been burned, right? There's bad actors in the space. And that's the challenge, is that there are bad actors out there. There's people that tout that you give them $10,000 and you'll get, you're 100%, right? That happens. I mean, so there is that stigma that you have to overcome. Certainly there's a price point where if you can't, you need to have some skin in the game too. Am I willing to pay $100 or $200? Probably so. But there's some balance between I'm paying something, but I'm going to get something in return, vice the fear, and rightly so, there's a fear because so many people have been burned, and there's so many horror stories of people trying to find the benefits, whether it's paying for a resume or paying for a job or paying for benefits, and people pay for all these things today. They shouldn't pay what they're paying. That's the challenge: is what is the right price point, if you will, to have a little skin in the game. But for a reward, for something that's a service that you'd pay for otherwise, right? So yeah, that's the challenge, I think. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. One of the reasons why I actually set this up, I have my own story of getting burned. Like I'm not going to name any names of companies, but I worked with a company to help me with my VA disability rating. And on the back end, they took some serious money from me. And after I went through the process, I looked back and went, I could have done this. If somebody had sat me down for 20 minutes and explained how this worked, I could have done this. I did not need to spend all that money whatsoever. So I agree with you 100%. One of the other issues I think, and I seem to feel that veterans really struggle with this, is that they have an issue investing in themselves. They don't like to go spend money on themselves to improve in different ways. So because going back to the idea that everything is kind of given to us for free, when you're in the military, everything's handed to you. Like these different trainings and these different upgrades and all that stuff, they're just given to you. You don't pay for it whatsoever. And then when you get out, you have access to things like the GI Bill is a perfect example. Another thing that's free and given to you. And if you're in Texas, you have the Hazelwood Act and everything. So a lot of people don't think that they should have to spend money to invest in themselves to better their situation. And I think a reality of the civilian world, unfortunately or fortunately, is that you need to take the time and the money and the energy and whatever else you need to do, put it back into yourself, and that's how you do advance yourself.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on about that. Again, the military institution, you get institutionalized, right? And you have a way of thinking and of doing things, and you feel comfortable in doing that. And when you leave that behind, and you don't have that place where you fit in, and it's not the same. Like it's not the same. Like in the military, it's pretty clear, more or less. Like look, they're going to tell you where to go. They're going to tell you what to do. They're going to tell you. They're going to. I mean, it's kind of they tell you how to get promoted. It's pretty clear. But getting promoted in the real world is hard. It's very nebulous. In the military, it's pretty. You can figure it out pretty quick, right? I think that it's right. Yeah. When you lose all of that structure that you're used to and operate in what seeming is this chaotic landscape of the civilian world, which it is in its own way, people get lost and frustrated by that. That's why I think, again, the services you're providing, again, can be super valuable to folks that are angry, disgruntled, or want to find something that is a little more of that closed loop of, okay, this is, if you do these things, this will be the outcome, and having a little more clear path, checklist mentality, I think, in some ways can be a good thing for something like this. You know how to, when you filled your travel claim out in the military, it told you what to do and you could fill it out. It was kind of pain, but you figured it out, right? And then when you get out on the other side and it's navigating all the benefits and things that are out there can be just overwhelming, and people just shut down instead of trying to invest in. Yeah.
The way that I like to describe to people is I've built a gym. So imagine like you're out of shape and you're sitting there going like, well, why would I go to the gym? Because I can go work out at the park. There's like pull-up bars and everything over there. I'm like, yeah, the park is over there. You can go work out there if you want, but you're not doing it.
Yeah, right.
And they don't have all the equipment and you don't know what you're doing and all that. Go to the gym. At the gym, you've got all the different equipment there. You've got personal trainers walking around that can help you out. So that's how we've set this up. You can come in, walk around, all the equipment's there. People are there to help you out. And then,
And I do want to back up a little bit. It's a pretty unique transition from, the first business you started, which, you obviously bootstrapped it, did great. Sold it, I assume. Did you sell the first company breathalyzer business? Did you sell all that? Or you're still doing that too?
No, I've completely shut it down. It's not a cool, awesome success story at the end of it. It was Amazon changed their terms of service. I forget exactly when they did it, but then they started enforcing something that before they had allowed, and it shut down like 80% of our revenue overnight. Yeah. We were doing this kind of internal version of drop shipping. I can get into all the specifics of it, but they shut it down basically 80% overnight. So I sat down with my wife and we had to make the decision like, okay, like I can rebuild this again, but it's going to take me a couple of years to build it back up, complying with the new terms of service. But I'd already reached that point, like I told you, of just diminishing returns, where just selling random products to random people online
wasn't scratching the itch. And you've been thinking about this for a while, obviously, of how to give back, like to pivot to this space was something you've been like. How did the idea to do this come to you?
I actually started this process over 10 years ago. I'd launched a blog called The Modern Military Man. And it was horrible. Nobody read it. Nobody, it never went anywhere whatsoever. But I was writing blog posts like talking about personal finance and how to access some of this stuff, particularly the VA loan, because I was 25 and I had 8 units that I'd purchased using the VA loan and was already generating some pretty good cash flow. This was back when interest rates were like 2.5%. Right. So that's another thing that talking about kind of sharks out there and people taking advantage of veterans. There's so many different companies and people still pushing like, use your VA loan, you have to buy it, you can invest in property, yada, yada, yada. Like, I don't think it's actually always the best thing for people to do. It just, it is the right thing for some people. And you cannot make the same amount of money today as you used to, unless it's under crazy circumstances. Not to say you shouldn't use it. But actually, Beau, to turn this around on you a little bit, I don't know if you're the right person or not to ask, but from your company. So if I'm in the midst of prepping to go to an MBA program, and on the back end, I were interested in the VC or PE world, is there any like advice that you would give to somebody or another veteran in my shoes?
It's very, a lot of it is role dependent, right? I think, the typical candidate, I kind of air quote the typical candidate that we place is someone that is very similar to you, did 5-7 years in the military, got out, got their MBA, but then is working on Wall Street or working on, has run a P&L. So you're kind of doing it the reverse, right? You had a P&L and now getting your MBA. So yeah, I think that's the key, is that you have to be able, I think from the MilVet side of the house, our pitch is that we can bring talent to companies that is differentiated, because not only, it's great if you want to hire a Stanford MBA that's been working on Wall Street, they're going to be awesome. But if you have a Stanford MBA that can read a P&L and spent 7 years in the military, and they're comfortable in chaos, which the PE space is often that way, right? That's a differentiator, right? So I think your path to get there may have been a little bit reversed, of going into the space immediately into entrepreneurship and then getting the MBA. But yeah, that is the kind of candidate we are looking for. That's what companies want, right? They want someone that has the combination of the veteran skills and the ability to read a P&L and has the business acumen to be successful. And that is a sweet spot for us in our company, because again, we talk a lot about, the ability to both talk to and lead a team, lead down and lead up, right? You're used to leading troops, you're used to leading airmen, whatever, Marines, soldiers, sailors. You know how to deal with, the floor, run the floor, but you can also talk to the board. And that is not a skill set that a lot of people that haven't been in the military have, to be candid, right? So again, from the MilVet's perspective, we believe that's what makes us special, or creates, why, especially in the PE space, which is the Wild West a lot of times, if you need a leader to come in there that can be that kind of leader, that can lead up, lead down, is comfortable in chaos, but also has the hard skills necessary to read a P&L, that's something that's unique. So that's what we're looking for. So certainly a candidate like yourself would be someone that we would definitely be interested in talking to whenever you're ready to talk. Yeah.
I might be contacting you guys in a couple of years.
Sounds great. That's what we do. No doubt about it. So how now did you start this? You have a team. How big's the current? Is it all? Everything's online now, I assume, what you're doing. What do you see the future as? You talked about it a little bit. You want to get to where it's grown enough and have actually local communities. Is that the vision down line? And how are you getting people to sign up today? What's been the way people can sign up or have been signing up? And again, how do we get the word out there? And how can I help to get the word out there for you? Yeah.
Well, my overall vision, I want people to go from the military to directly into another community.
Yeah.
I want there to not be this huge jolt that happens when you swap from one and then you're just lost in the sea out there. I want there to be something set up that you can slide into, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm back in the civilian world. I'm back in my hometown or whatever. I've got a beard. I'm sitting on my parents' couch or whatever. But you also, in your back pocket, you have access to all the people that were still in the military, that same community, people helping each other out. So it's all there together. So, I mean, we want this to be, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people is what we're working on right there. The main way that people have been hearing about it is just from my personal network. Being an Academy guy, like I'm plugged into a fair amount of just kind of different groups. But from there, just word of mouth. I've gone on a few other podcasts. If anybody out there is interested in maximizing or learning more about their benefits and how to do so in an ethical way, just come check us out at masterthemilitary.com. Like I said, shoot me an email, alex@masterthemilitary. Yeah.
I love it.
That's really
great. It's because leaving the military is a leap, but I think you're building the safety net. You're not leaping into just the chasm. You're leaping, but there's a security blanket there with that jump, because it's always a jump.
Yeah.
It's always going to be hard. You can't remove that, but if you can make it easier and the incline a little, whatever it is, to make it a more smoother transition, to get go the infinity pool into the water by jumping in off the cliffs of Acapulco, right?
I like that. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, it has been a pleasure talking to you today. And I'm really fired up for what you're doing, how you're giving back to the military community. It's a needed service out there to navigate that sea of goodwill and put that all together for our veterans that can certainly use it. So thank you for the time. I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Any final words before we close her down?
No, that's it, Beau. Once again, I'll say thank you for what you're doing. I've listened to some of your podcasts. You've got great guests coming on here, far more interesting and successful people than me. So keep getting the word out there that there is some really cool, amazing stuff you can do when you get out of the military, but it's 100% on you. No one's coming to save you.
There you
It's
go.
on you.
Own your own path and own your own career. If you do that, you will never go wrong. No doubt about it. Good stuff. But there are people here to help. People are happy to help, but you got to own it. That's it. Love it. Thanks again, Alex. Appreciate it, man.
Cool. Thanks, Beau.